With everything going on, I guess I'm just not shocked that we aren't shocked, that we're unfazed at the rollout of all of this alien information. Hello and welcome back to It's Queer Magic. It's me, Kirbo, and I missed you, and I can tell that you missed me too. You missed me. I can see that crinkle in your eye. I can see you smiling. Stop trying to be shy. Stop trying to be coy, although it suits you. I missed you and you missed me and we missed each other. But there was a break in the alphabet superset, and you know what? It felt like a good one to take. So here we are. And we're back now. Wait, that's not even true. I posted something. I still missed you, but I did post something. I am losing it. I posted a meditation. Listen, if you're stressed, if you got lots of things going on in your mind and your heart right now, go listen to that meditation. It is so short, quick 15 minutes for peace, for relaxation, for tension relief, and to water your hope, to nurture that so you can hold it in your heart and move forward in a more hopeful manner. So, I have not missed, but we are back with the alphabet superset. And we're on week E. And I'm cheating a little bit here. Not really, because it counts, right? Extraterrestrials. I get that we call them aliens, but extraterrestrials starts with an E, and that's what we want to talk about. I didn't feel like talking about aliens back then, and now this is the thing that's on my mind that I want to talk about. So let's talk about it. There's been so much alien news, right? And they've been sort of rolling this out on us for a while to see either how we were going to react to it or to distract us from other things. There's a million reasons, a million theories as to why they are releasing the information in the way that they're releasing it. But the one thing that we do know is that they are releasing it. They as in the governments of the world, right? Specifically the US government having that whole shebang where they were like,
we'll have to have a little trial where we tell everybody what's going on, and we got to have people testify because oops, we didn't tell you. Aliens.
And now we have the Mexican government being like, okay, we've got mummies, bruh. Like, they are here. They are not human. We're pretty sure. And we're going to look into it, but this is what's happening. I, for one, am unfazed a little bit, right? There's so much going on in the world. Aliens is just like, okay, bring it on. And I know a lot of you feel that way too. So I'm sort of not surprised that we are not surprised, because it's just like, there's so much else to focus on that I don't really have time, space, energy, brain waves to deal with that when it doesn't really affect my day-to-day life. But I do think it's funny that we were all just like, whatever. But we do have this like collective fear of aliens, right? We have this collective fear of extraterrestrials. And I understand where it comes from, but I want to investigate this because I think that this much fear at being so all-encompassing and like clouding our judgment, I think comes from a place that we can actually like engage with, work on, and see what's really going on in our feelings and in our like brains. Because I get it. I get being afraid of aliens. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that like no scenario of like extraterrestrial life and encounters like doesn't scare me. I'm fearful too. And it's interesting because now we're getting into a little bit of my like channeling experience. But you know what? If you're new here, I am a psychic. I am a psychic medium. I don't work as a medium, but I do work as a psychic. And I've channeled lots of different spirits. And some of those energies and entities have presented themselves as extraterrestrial, as celestial light beings, as star beings. And that was not scary at first. But even as someone who has their own personal like interactions with something that I would consider under that umbrella, there's still many circumstances that terrify me, right? Like possibilities of the way that engaging with extraterrestrials could go south, right? And a lot of them, upon like looking into how I felt and like what's really going on with me, a lot of them are tied to colonization. I am descended from people who were encroached upon by people that they had never seen, by people that they had never met. Now, these people were similar, but looked different, right? And I'm talking about multiple pieces of my lineage, right? I come from people who are descended from the transatlantic slave trade, right? Who are from Africa originally, right? And I'm also descended from the indigenous people of Turtle Island of North America. So this is like a epigenetic experience, a deeply rooted ancestral fear of someone coming over and not having good intentions, right? Of violence, of apocalypse, right? And so that fear is really connected to that for me. And I know that that's not necessarily the same for everybody, depending on where you come from and what your ancestral experience is. But at the same time, I sort of do think it's connected. From a BIPOC perspective of people who are, right, Black, Indigenous, or people of color, like, there's a lot of experience with that in our genes that have been passed down. But I also think that people who are white and like European descended or white from around the world still have this information of like what behavior went down. Like we all have ancestral information in our bodies and in our spirits that remember how things shook out. Right? And while our personal histories are usually more complicated than just like 1 + 1 = 2, white, Black, right? We still have this collective history, especially in the United States. So it makes sense to me to think someone coming here that might be like advanced or might be ahead of us, at least in the ability to get here, right? And to automatically assume that there would be violence, to automatically assume that there would be a sort of takeover situation, I think is like rooted in colonial terror. I think it's rooted in colonial violence. And I'm not necessarily convinced that that would be what happens, because we are talking about advancement, right? We're talking about beings that are what we consider to be like beyond us. Like, I don't necessarily think there's like a hierarchy of beings. Like, I don't look at a roly-poly bug, a little cute isopod, and be like, I'm better than you. Like, I don't feel that way. But I think that if we consider like what we are thinking of aliens being ahead of us or more evolved than us, from my perspective, that doesn't include like needless violence. Right? I think that is also sort of rooted in colonial thinking. When we talk about advancements and people being ahead and people being behind, we can't really extract that idea from our internal biases and our like cultural biases and what we have been operating on as advanced for so many years, right? Because there was a time, and there still is a time, where we are looking at civilizations and saying this one was more advanced because they had more violent tendencies. And these people who were not willing to necessarily fight back right away, which I do not want you to hear that and think that that's like the whole story of how things happened, as if like no indigenous peoples around the world were like not fighting back or whatever. That's not the case. Please look into the story because it's really interesting and even more appalling than you could imagine. But back to the story at hand, we consider the people more willing to commit violence, right? The people more interested in this kind of mass violence that was unprecedented at the time. We consider that unprecedented violence to be advanced, more smart, more normal. And we have this idea that that is what human nature is, which comes from like a Eurocentric idea, right? The people that were writing things down, deciding that they were the baseline, right? That they were the model, that they were the best and also the original, right? Which so much science is like, okay, you're not, that's not the case, right? That's sort of not it. And when we think about that and we do this like journey of decolonization in our ways of thinking and our ways of relating, can we like extend that to beings that maybe are extraterrestrial, that maybe do not reside on our planet? And if we do that, how does that change the way that we want to go about like engaging with beings from other planets or from different dimensions or whatever? Because if we think that advancement means violence, then it makes sense to sort of just fear anything that could come here, because coming here, right, is the advancement, because we can't get anywhere. Right now, we can't get anywhere that has life. So we think, I don't know, a lot of things could be true and a lot of things could be not true. but this is what we're operating on. And so that alone is an advancement. And if we think that that's what advancement is, of course we're fearful. But what if we decolonize that idea? What if we take out the idea that more violence means more smart, like more smarts means more violence, and we consider an evolution of brains and way of relating outside of this violent nature, then that opens up a million doors to what kind of relating we could be doing, what we could learn, what we could gain, what we could share with beings outside of our planet, right? With the extraterrestrials. And, you know, I don't necessarily have like a whole point of where this was going, but I wanted to just talk about that quickly. Like, what if decolonization now, okay, hold on. I know that there are so many things that are necessary to focus on in our decolonization journey, right? Because there are so many things that are physical, tangible that we are dealing with that are affecting people's lives. And this is not necessarily one of those things. This is just thought, right? So it's okay. I'm not saying that this is like the most important thing that we should be focusing on. I just think it's interesting. If our decolonization journey included extracting the idea from us that more advanced equals more violent, then what would that mean for the way that we relate to each other? And also, what would that mean for the way that we relate to beings that may be ahead of us? And how we what kind of welcome we want to offer, what kind of welcome we want to portray, what kind of initiatives we're going to back as a nation or as a planet when it comes to extraterrestrial relations, right? Do we want to go forward guns first? And how many times has that worked out? You know what I'm saying? Worked out in a way that was good for everybody, because it's worked out for certain people, right? I don't know. I think that so much of our fear is like, well, when new people come, they kill us. And that has not always been the truth, right? It just hasn't. Again, that kind of mass genocide, that kind of mass violence, the kind of war that was happening even before the Europeans got to the Americas was unprecedented. It was like people weren't fighting like this. And I highly recommend reading An Indigenous People's History of the United States by, I want to say, Roxanne Ortiz Dunbar, or possibly Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. No, I think it's Ortiz Dunbar. I'll put it up. Please read that if you want to get more information about how the United States came to be from an Indigenous people's perspective, from their history, right? I think that it is very illuminating and might change your mind and might open you up to what's possible. But also, that's where I sort of get this idea that like maybe we don't need to be afraid. I'm not saying that there's no such thing as violence or that no Indigenous peoples like engaged in violence. Violence is a reality of our planet, absolutely. But as we evolve, are we not trying to get to a place where we are engaging with all beings on this planet and elsewhere with like loving kindness first, right? With an understanding that we are all one, that we're all life here and other places are the same. And how can we find that line? How can we find how we're similar from a place of loving kindness as opposed to moving forward with violence? And I think that might be, if you're somebody who's like very afraid of extraterrestrials, it might be a good idea to ruminate on. Like maybe you're afraid because colonization is like the only framework that we have, right? In a post-colonial world is the only framework that we have for life. When in reality, there are so many other pieces of even our history, and also the way that we are going to evolve and move forward in our relations with each other and the rest of the planet and outside of it, that don't necessarily need to include that violence. I think it's an interesting thought. What do you think about that? What makes you afraid of aliens? And again, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. We are apes, right? We're like evolved apes. And there's just a part of me that is always going to have this fear of things that are different, of things that don't look how I have seen in the world, right? But I've been around for all these years, and there was a time where I'd never seen a clown before and I had to get over it, right? There was a time where I had never seen a dog or a cat or a bird, and you can like deal with that. I used to be able to not even walk past birds. And now I'm like, I can't wait to get one. So, you know, it's like fear is something that is stoked inside of us, that is offered up to us on a plate that we consume at incredible rates. And because of that, it's always a readily available experience for us. But if we can like engage with that feeling and sort of be a little bit more intentional with that fear, with untangling it, with coaxing it, with talking to it, who knows what we'd be able to accomplish in our personal lives and also in our relations with any possible extraterrestrials. So get back to me. Tell me what you think about this. Tell me, even if you're mad at it, like, let me know what makes you upset. Like, I just want to hear how you feel. And if you want to hear more about my like personal channelings and my personal relationships that I've had with celestial beings, star beings, things that are of light and non-physical form, then let me know and I'll maybe make a video about that later on in the alphabet or when we have another break week. Stick around for next week and I will speak to you soon. Thank you so much for everything, and it was nice to sit with you too. Maybe we'll do this again sometime. Bye.